Right, well we've already discussed, and I've given you my opinion how to start a collection and roughly what to buy. I know an awful lot of people say to me, what's a good investment? What should I be buying? I answer it a little bit tongue-in-cheek and say, nothing. Right, well we've already discussed, and I've given you my opinion how to start a collection and roughly what to buy. I know an awful lot of people say to me, what's a good investment? What should I be buying? I answer it a little bit tongue-in-cheek and say, nothing. I don't think you should be buying anything. If you're buying a classic car for investment, I think you're making a mistake. If you want to buy something for investment, just go and buy gold. And just leave it where it is in a gold vault somewhere, and yeah, dogs are going off. Yeah, just buy gold, leave it in a gold vault. The most boring thing in the world you can ever buy, obviously, but the chances are you will make a bit of money out of it over the next 2 or 3 years. A little, but it's a pretty safe investment, I would say. Classic cars, no, don't buy them for investment. No, you're completely wrong. You're the wrong person to buy classic cars. I don't even want to sell you a classic car if you're going to look at it for an investment. If you're going to look sensibly and think, I want to buy a classic car that I want to enjoy and use, and I'd very much like to think I'm buying it at the right time of the market, or the market is maybe its most lowest or most sensibly priced at the moment, then yeah, I can understand that. There's several models out there that I've said over the last few years that watch these vehicles, they're at an all-time low. There's only one way they can go, is up, which is not rocket science. It's pretty obvious, really. When you look at a vehicle like a Scimitar and think they were hovering around the 3,500, 4,000 quid for a nice Scimitar, ridiculous money, ludicrous money. They hadn't gone anywhere in 20 years. So consequently, there was only one way that vehicle's going to go, is up. It will never be any cheaper than 3,500, 4 grand. And what's happened? They've doubled in price, basically, for the same vehicle. So that's great. Another one I've been rambling on about is the MGFs, the modern MGFs, which is the MX-5 competitor, if you like, which again has been too cheap, way too cheap, simply because it got a bad name. If they're sorted properly, they're a damn good little car, and there's only one way they can go. And again, they've crept up. They haven't rocketed, but they've crept up. So whoever bought one 3 years ago, 4 years ago, has had an awful lot of enjoyment out of it, I would like to think, minimal repair costs, and he's looking at a vehicle that has probably increased by 25, 30% on his investment. So, you know, everyone's a winner, you can't ask for more. Pre-war cars, absolutely on the floor at the moment, and there's only one reason for it, and that is that we've lost our pre-war buyers. Classic cars are an age-related commodity, if you like, and we've seen it. I've seen it over the years. I've been in it long enough, and I've been lucky enough to see Edwardian, not lucky enough to witness Edwardian cars go off the market. And that was all them years ago, 1970 something or whatever. Edwardian cars just disappeared, went right rock bottom, 7,000 or 8,000 quid, bought you a beautiful Edwardian car, and they just disappeared. I don't know where they've gone, private collections or whatever, I'm not too sure. There's a couple of dealers in the country that do specialise in them, but that's all. And from what I can see, they haven't got a massive turnover, probably a decent markup, but not a particularly good turnover. And we're seeing now, witnessing 1920s, 30s, pre-war cars going the same way. They won't go quite the same as Edwardian because there's a lot more of them. You know, when you think about it, there weren't that many Edwardian cars. So, you know, if you reckon there was, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 Edwardian cars floating around the market or on the roads or whatever, I don't know the figures, then it's quite easy to see those cars disappear. But when you're talking about 60,000, 70,000 pre-war cars on the road and floating about, that's obviously a much bigger market, full stop. So it's slower, but at the same time, they are disappearing. We're getting more than our fair share, and we're actually doing okay. We've picked the prices up from 2 or 3 years ago when they were really in the doldrums. But still, they're not achieving what they should. They're fabulous value for money, absolutely fantastic value. So I'd look at pre-war cars if you can live with a pre-war car, but of course the modern man can't. Simple as that. So you've got to start looking at post-war stuff. Well, there's very little really that comes on the market in the 50s, early 50s, because being just post-war, industry was in a poor old state, so there wasn't that much being produced. But look at the late 50s, early 60s vehicles. One I gave you an example of at our last talk about starting a classic car collection, and that was the Sunbeam Talbot 90. For some reason, they've been cheap for a long, long time and are a really good buy. I touched on the Rover P6, another good one. Vauxhalls and Fords, I think as far as value for money, you got to be very careful with them because they're a bit like stocks and shares, especially Fords. You know, when you think we were selling RS 2000s at 42,000 quid, they're now 28,000 quid. So not a particularly good investment, if you like. Vauxhalls again, similar sort of stable really. So I tend to leave them alone. I tend to look at things that other people don't look at very much, and we're talking about Armstrong Sidleys and that type of vehicle. And again, I mentioned the Sunbeam again because they're a perfect example, absolutely bang on example is that. So I think you've got to look through the less favourable cars, or the cars that aren't quite as popular, because prices, don't forget, are market led. You know, you get 10 people in here bidding on a Ford whatever, and obviously the price is going to go higher. You get 2 people bidding on an Armstrong Siddeley, an old Sapphire or something like that, and the prices are going to remain stable. So keep an open mind, and also things like MG TDs. We've experienced post-war TDs really depreciating in value over the last year or two. So it could be a really good time to buy them. I think they're at rock bottom. 10 or 12 grand buys you a very nice TD, 13 or 14 buys you a lovely TD that was making 20 odd thousand 2.5, 3 years ago. So they could be a good buy at the moment. I just think you've got to use your common sense and look all the way across at the market, all the way across, and compare prices. And the only way to do that is study all the adverts, both on internet and newspaper, and you will come up with something, you will find something that will be worth buying at the moment and will prove a good buy. Our view on classic cars, my view has always been, and I've instilled it on David and Paul, and they know exactly how to look on it, and that is originality. You know, things are only original once, so you want original car in superb condition, ideally if you can find lowish mileage, unmolested, and you've cracked it. It's a holy grail, you can't go wrong. Unfortunately, they are a little bit few and far between, and but fortunately, the other side of the coin, and it's a little bit mercenary this really, is that we found over the years that not too many people know a decent car. They know a glimmy car that's in your face and they think, whoa, look at that, I really fancy that. And I look at it and think, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. I'll go for that one there that wants prepping up properly and sorting out. So originality is so important, obviously overall general condition. People say to me about history. I think we mentioned history at some stage a while back. The history is great. You know, if you've got a really lovely car with lovely history, great. If you've got a horrible car with lovely history, who cares about the history? It's the car. The answer really is history, unimportant. It really is unimportant. It's a nice little add-on. You know, it's a bit like buying a car, you know, without any windows. You know, much better to buy the car with windows, but you know, I wouldn't pay a premium for a car, you know, that hasn't got any windows, just because I want to put windows in it. It's the condition of the car that I'd look at all the time. So the history side of it is desirable, but not essential. Yeah, so there you are. That's a few tips. I'm just scratching the surface, really am. You know, I mean, I can't condense 50 years into just a few minutes. It doesn't work, but you got the gist of it, I think. And then next episode, we're going to be talking about how to store a car, how to keep it in good condition, how to look after it, especially through the winter months. I'll give you some tips of do's and don'ts which might help you keep the car in the condition that it is now.